welcome to another episode of Culture Conversations with myself, Mac Dara, and
George. The last time I checked.
All good. This week we are going to be focusing again on SME founders, owners, or anyone who's got a busy role. We had a great response to the last episode where we talked about preparing for an exit and some of the things you need to think about, removing yourself out of the day-to-day. What we have been asked by people was to really give a bit more detail around that. What are some real practical steps that they can take to get some more time back to work on their strategic priorities? So that's what we're going to have a look at.
Yeah, and I think, look, just to frame the conversation further, thank you to everyone that got in touch following the last episode. What we're referring to here is something we call the busy trap. So where founders essentially become professional firefighters, and how can we help them to firefight that desire or want to be a firefighter in their day-to-day role? So, differentiating between early stage behavior where, we're being scrappy, we need to react to things, we maybe need to be more hands-on, versus how we achieve that longer term operating model, our role as leaders in that process, and how, as typically our businesses become more and more complex, whether that be more clients, more people, and just that day-to-day noise, how, a founder, an owner really needs to look to, not be doing all of the day-to-day or, too much of the day-to-day. They're not holding everything together all of the time, but clearly their role is still key in the successful running of the business. So, Macdara, what is one tool or tip you found that can help with this?
So a very simple but effective exercise that I've done with loads of people through the years is to take a blank sheet of paper and map out how you're spending your time. So you get your blank sheet of paper, start putting boxes around, okay, I'm spending 30% of my time in meetings. I'm spending 20% of my time on admin. I'm spending 20% of my time meeting clients. And however it is you spend your time, it's always been a very illuminating exercise for people to see it written down and realize, oh my God, I'm spending way more time than I thought on things that I don't deem a priority. And that could be done using a lot less time and probably in a more effective way. So that's been a really good exercise with all sorts of people. I've done it with, owners of businesses. I've done it with people who are managing teams, and it's allowed them to look at how they're spending their time versus how they would want to be spending their time. So that's another useful exercise to tack onto it, is to then do that comparison and say, if I was designing my role now, what would it look like? Often we get that opportunity when we change roles and we think, I'm not getting dragged into that stuff again. I'm not going to get bogged down with that. And people say, oh, do you? Oh, no, I don't do that.
Not anymore.
So that is a super effective exercise that I have done with people.
Can I ask you a question on that, Macdara? So as humans, we all have an instinct to, want to feel needed and respected and like we're adding value. And often when you achieve something, when you're involved in the day-to-day, you get that dopamine hit, of doing something, of supporting the business, of, I guess, once you've mapped out that delta between what the owner founder would ideally be doing versus what they are doing, how much of addressing that comes down to ego or, sense of self-worth, in your opinion?
Yeah, quite a lot, but maybe, there's less to be gained from those smaller tasks than from a bigger win.
Yep.
So if you're talking about a dopamine hit, as someone running a business, do you think you're going to get a bigger dopamine hit from helping someone resolve a fairly minor issue, and yeah, it's a win and everyone's happy, versus landing a big strategic account?
Right.
Okay. So it's a bit like the the marshmallow experiment they do with kids, right? In terms of that delayed
Mm.
satisfaction piece, and who's going to eat the marshmallows, eat the one rather than waiting till the end to get two. It's okay, how should I be spending my time?
Right.
And how will I actually feel if my time has been put to use in a more valuable way for my benefit and the business's benefit?
So it's almost looking for those opportunities for that activity, that time being spent, which is clearly a finite resource, and where we can make 1+1 = 3. Whereas you're doing the basic, maybe more minor tasks, it's quite linear, it's quite transactional. Being able to focus on the longer term, the more strategic, if you can paint the picture of how that's going to add more value, getting someone to that place is probably more straightforward.
Yeah, and it's a bit of the teaching a man to fish kind of analogy. You can step in and keep helping people and keep showing them how to do things,
Mm.
but that is, as the leader within the business, that is a very poor use of your time, right? When you could be doing, as I say, your ability to exert a much bigger influence on the business is far greater than helping that one individual
Yep.
resolve some fairly probably minor day-to-day issues. And also maybe what you're robbing them of in terms of their ability to develop and grow and build skills,
Mm.
instead of just giving them the answer on a plate.
And you spoke about having done this with people in the past. Would you be able to give an actual example of where you've done this?
Yeah, absolutely. We were dealing with the CEO of a business and we were doing this exercise. And what came through there was the amount of time being spent gathering data and preparing for board meetings, specifically in this case. And it was clear from these conversations that the solution required was more of a technical, boring one, perhaps, than what they expected. But actually, we undertook a piece of work there to look at how their processes worked, how they gathered their data, how they shared that data,
Mm.
and how that could be brought to the CEO on a more regular basis as a way for him to monitor sales and progress and milestones and red flags and issues.
Yeah.
But also when he needed to prepare a board pack, it was a click of a button, it was readily available, and not this huge mission every time to having this huge lead time for each board meeting. So
Which is so energy consuming and so time consuming,
yeah.
right? For a senior person, you're going to go to a board meeting. We've been there, right? We go to steercos and excos and these senior governance meetings, and it's not okay to just have a printout of information. You need to be able to pretty forensically be able to go through it. And if you find as an owner or founder that you're going to a meeting, you might be leading or you might be attending, and you have to immerse yourself in so much detail, and you have to, you know, be involved in the production and the sourcing and the checking you're actually not able to spend the time you need to understand what is going on, because so much time is being almost wasted on bringing that information together rather than having it made available to you in a smart way.
Yeah, you're putting all your effort into getting the data rather than understanding behind what's happening behind it,
Exactly.
right? Which is actually the more important piece to fix the problems or to understand the wins, right? Why are we up here? Why are sales doing well in this particular geography? And being able to tell that good story. So yeah, so that's been super helpful and a real eye opener for people. So that's my great tip, George. What would you give as a kind of in this area? What advice or tips would you have for anybody out there?
Yes, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and it's almost going to be a 3-part answer.
Okay.
But it's our podcast, so I can cheat a little bit. But it does all center around the same thing, and it's being able to be prejudicial with your time. And I think I would break this down really into, as I said, 2 or 3 kind of component parts, but that all join up to be able to help an owner, a founder, a leader really understand with clarity what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the benefit that it's going to deliver. So the first step that I would always kind of think about or talk about is, are you able to draw a straight line or a relatively straight line between the things that you're doing and how that helps you achieve your vision? So if we think about, the CEO or a founder or a leader of a company will have a set of objectives in mind that help them realize their vision. And clearly that can be any number of things depending on the business. But it's crucial for them to be able to take a step back and say, using maybe a bit of what you were discussing, I'm spending X amount of my time working on this. Can I draw a line between what I'm doing and how that helps us become what we want to be, or take the business where we want to get to, or does it help us sell in the time horizon we might want to? And if the answer is no, there will be cases where you do need to do certain things, but that is where I would almost have like a check and challenge in your own head, maybe even part of a light touch governance process, is saying, is the answer to doing this yes?
Yeah.
Is the answer no? And as long as we're able to document why we're not doing something and the logic behind that, actually that can be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about making sure that what is being undertaken by that often most senior layer contributes, and you can draw a straight line to the vision being realized.
I guess, but also the straight line in terms of, is this, I guess, driving revenue? Is it closing risk? But also, does this need to be me?
Absolutely.
So the effort may be required and necessary, but who does it need to be done by?
Absolutely. The second kind of piece within this example or tip would be, the higher you get up the organization, the more prominent and senior your role. And this is maybe going to be quite a controversial thing to say, but I think you should almost have the lowest number of things to do. And people might step back and with horror at hearing that. But that doesn't mean, that you are stepping away from work. What it means is really an owner, a founder, someone senior within a particularly a small business, if they want to elevate themselves away from just being head down on the day to day, is taking a predetermined amount of time, and that might be a month, a quarter, a year, whatever is appropriate for that business, and almost having a charter or a commitment to themselves and the business that says, I'm going to work on these 3, 5, 7, whatever the right number is of things. Part of the reason for that is prioritization. So it helps you to prioritize your own time. It gives you clarity around, what do I need to be focused on? But also, as stuff comes in, it helps prevent you becoming a bottleneck. Yep. Because if there is a clear awareness of what you are doing as an owner, a founder, a leader, and something emerging comes in that you have to, in some cases, drop everything to work on, you're able to then say, I need to do this, but it's going to jeopardize potentially the delivery of these however many things, and therefore I might need support from the business, other people, I might need to park them, we might need to, deprioritize. And that's where having that self-awareness on an ongoing basis of what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be working on, linking it back to the why, is so crucial. And it becomes that ability then to be able to challenge what you're doing, to say no, which is surprisingly hard to do when it's something you care so much about, but also gives you that ability to, as you move forward, prioritize, reprioritize, and make sure that things don't get dropped.
Yeah, but it's also that stepping back, because we all have, whatever way you organize yourself, you have your to-do list. We all have those things that get bumped and bumped, right, onto the next day, because in the heat of the moment, something comes up, you want to help, you want to deal with it, and you lose sight of the bigger priorities. So it's a bit of that classic, in saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? And what is the cost of 5 little yeses?
Absolutely.
to the bigger thing that you're saying
to
no
the bigger
to.
yes,
Yeah.
or you might be saying
or
no
that you're
to.
just not getting to. Yeah.
That's right. And then the third kind of sub part of this, as a lot of people know, one of my favorite topics is governance. Often when you talk to a smaller business or a medium-sized business, you know, the need for governance can almost feel like one of the last things you want to focus on.
Yeah.
Clearly, we have commercial goals and aspirations. We have things we want to go after, and governance can be seen as an operating burden. It can be seen as a bit of a cost to the business growing. But actually having governance that is right sized and proportionate, you know, it can't be just one size fits all. No, it works for that great big company, therefore shoehorn it into yours. Mm-hmm. It has to be proportionate, it has to be right for the business. But without that governance, there is often, when everything is busy, everything is frantic, you know, there is a focus on, you know, commercials in particular, there can be a tendency to get to decisions maybe too quickly, or take decisions that might not have the evidence and the data behind them. So what I'm not suggesting here is having governance for the sake of governance. It has to be right for that business. It has to be dealt with in a pragmatic way. But having that clear meeting cadence where you come together, where it is clear who owns what, how decisions are made, how it's documented, how that information is kept, referred back to any actions, etc., is crucial, because part of that is about reducing white noise in the mind of the senior leader. Mm-hmm. If they have that trust in the information, the governance they have in place, it stops being a burden. It stops being something that you know, potentially see as something that's distracting you, and actually it becomes a crucial enabler for where you want to take the business.
Yeah, and I would say, from, you know, having worked in big corporates, obviously, to smaller businesses, I think everyone's a bit allergic to the word governance. I mean, another way to think about it is most teams and organizations and companies are having regular meetings, right? So if you think about your weekly team meeting, how much data is being analyzed in that meeting, if any, and how much improvement could be brought to the effectiveness of those meetings if you did have easily accessible, accurate, timely data, right? I think sometimes, you know, for all the right reasons, people don't want to push their staff and teams to spend hours preparing PowerPoint presentations and pulling data together. And that's maybe where some help, obviously some external help is required, which we have done for clients in terms of, you know, so to reframe it, I think, wow, if we could have a weekly meeting where I got all of my data pretty much at the click of a button, rather than narratives and people positioning things in certain ways, if you actually had the facts and figures in front of you and in front of everybody, I think it could really make you more effective and more efficient, you know?
Yeah, and just to build on that, we spoke in our last episode around reducing dependence on founders and owners. And for me, governance in the right way is a crucial part of helping to elevate a senior leader away from the day-to-day, but so that they still have accountability. They just don't feel the need to have responsibility over everything. And the difference, and it goes business by business, but the difference can be subtle, but making sure that there is that delineation of responsibility from accountability, making sure that when you go into a meeting, you're able to understand what is there, what are the business decisions that are being taken, why it's important. Again, I go back to the saying that I just mentioned. It reduces white noise in your mind, because you go in there with clarity, with purpose, you know what's going in, what's coming out, and it enables you to kind of shed some of the noise around you when you're, you know, busy on the day-to-day stuff. It's also a good opportunity to actually celebrate success as well, which is, you know, I think we've spoken about this before and we can talk about more in the future, but it's imperative to celebrate success, particularly where you are close to the business where you may be working in a small team, because that helps you define and redefine value and what good looks like.
Yeah. Because I think you have a tattoo, don't you? Let the governance set you free.
I cannot comment on any of my body ink, but thank you.
Yeah. We obviously are, we're preaching to the converted here in terms of the benefits of these things. I think, that's not always clear, but absolutely, it enables you to, it's like trying to remember all the things you need to do instead of writing them down. If you've got it in front of you, you know what your risks are, you know what the problems are, you know where to go. And as you say, you also know who to give a pat on the back to say, I saw that, well done, brilliant.
Yeah, and if we think forward as well, if there is some sort of, exit in mind, or, an organization might be looking forward to planning for a sale event, and I think we spoke about this last time a little bit, it's really important to have an understanding of risk. And, that can take many forms, clearly. But if a potential buyer came into an organization, one of the things they would want to see is, do you have an understanding of your risk? What is your risk appetite? How is it monitored? What does the remediation plan look like? And it's much easier to do that as you go, as opposed to, right, we need to scramble around now creating something that is backward looking, forward looking. So having it in place, light touch, it works for the business, and it's designed to help and grow the business scale, I think is fundamental on a number of levels, but specific back to the topic we're talking about now, making sure that a leader, an owner, can be prejudicial with their time, but also have confidence in what's happening.
Yeah, I think the risk one applies to our last episode around preparing for exit and, not wanting somebody else to come in and tell you the problems in your business. You should know them. The other is, in terms of this episode, they're the things that will take up your time. If you don't fix them now, they will be things that are either constantly going wrong or could really blow up in your face further down the road. Great. So to summarize, what we have talked about, I think, is know yourself, right? Know how you're spending your time, have a think about it, look at that versus how you want to be spending your time, and think how you should be spending your time. The other is know your business, right? Through better information, better meetings, a better way to look at things holistically and taking that step back across the business. So they're probably the two key things that can really help get you some time back and give you that freedom.
Yeah, and it almost feels alien, and we spoke about this in the last episode as well, but trying to get into that mindset shift of moving from I must be involved to actually a really good outcome here is for me being unnecessary in a lot of the rooms, a lot of the discussions. And by making that shift, it can buy you back serious time, and it can really help with you as a founder, your time, your ability to influence, but crucially to grow.
And it can also boost morale in the organization where people are being given the opportunity to step up a bit, run with things. Great. Okay, well, we hope that was useful for everybody, and that there's something in that for you to take away. We will leave it there for today. So it's goodbye from him.
And it's also goodbye from him.